Dude, you've made more sales in the last 2 weeks than the last 3 agencies I've hired combined. I think you really realize, okay, I think I got something here.
As I started growing and I started learning and I started reading personal development and I started listening to Tony Robbins and all these things, I would come home, remember, we'd share it and I'm learning about this and learning about that. We would talk about it. We started to dream up another life. And it was just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool, like, if we could, like, if I could work from home? Wouldn't it be cool if, like, we had everything within 5 miles, like 5-mile radius, like the gym, where we lived, my office, what we did in a given day was all within 5 miles. At that time, it was kind of like a pipe dream. When you do something that is so unconventional and everybody's saying you're crazy, you know, get the pension, get the stability, and we're doing the opposite. And so the only fuel I had was you. There wasn't like I was gonna get fuel from anywhere else. You gave me the confidence to just keep doing it.
People very often live up to what you expect of them. I think if you can communicate to your husband that, like, you believe in him, that you think he is brilliant, that you think he can do anything, he probably will. Okay, so our last podcast was about in-laws.
Yes.
How to think about them, how to approach it, how to deal with boundaries when you have to.
Yep. I thought that was a fire episode.
It was a fun one. And our bottom line
We might be a little biased, but.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Bottom line was love your in-laws, welcome them in, let them be part of your kids' lives, and also maintain your boundaries and protect your marriage when you have to.
100%.
That's bottom line.
Yeah. Follow the calm framework.
Follow the calm framework, which if you didn't catch last week's episode and you do nothing else, just go find the framework and write it down. And
That's right. And follow it.
And follow it. It was a really good one.
That's right.
So today we're going to be talking about something that we're actually really, really, really passionate about.
Very passionate about.
A super cool story around, and so I'm really excited to talk about it. But that
Very passionate about.
Dreaming and growing and building together.
Yes. Da-dum, da-dum.
So good.
Yeah,
so good. I'm so excited.
So good.
And I have to say, typically I have a week to think about the podcast, and I kind of ruminate on, okay, this is what the topic is going to be this week, and this is the things I'd like to touch on. This one, we just kind of decided to do last minute. So we did.
We had more time.
We haven't ruminated, but we have definitely lived this one, and we're super excited about it. So,
Yeah. No, let's dive in. Let's dive in. How would you start it off?
So I think to start it, maybe we'll start with our story and what that growth and dreaming together looked like.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's wild. Anybody who's known us for at least 8 years or more has witnessed the journey.
Yeah.
But anyone who's come in the last 8 years maybe hasn't and doesn't know. So I think it's pretty freaking cool. So I'll get into the early details.
Yeah, because I've never heard you say the story from your angle. You've heard me say it a bunch of times.
Yeah. So okay.
I've never heard it from your angle.
Yeah. So for you guys that don't know, Richard owns a company called One Call Closers, and that company has a podcast called the Closers Network Podcast.
Closers Network Podcast.
And so on that episode, or on that podcast, there is an episode where Richard goes into his story, definitely from his point of view. And so I guess maybe I'll share from my point of view.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I've never heard it from your point of view.
And please fill in details where I miss them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It can be such a blur. But okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really ever told it from my point of view. So
yeah.
So Rich and I met. I was 15 years old. Richard was 16. And Richard was a transfer student to our super, super small Christian high school, our junior year. And it was one of those schools where everyone knew everyone. And so Rich was the new guy. And so obviously he's tall, he's gorgeous, he's got these green eyes. So he's
super good looking.
Super good looking. So he stands out anyways. But I can remember clear as day where I was standing when he walked down the hallway. He was wearing a green shirt with green and white plaid shorts, and the sun hit his eyes in just the way, he's got the most beautiful green eyes, and it just hit them in this way that and I said it on our very first episode of this podcast, but my soul, the second I saw him, my soul knew there's something, right?
Love at first sight.
It was, which Richard still makes fun of me for, but that was my experience of the first time meeting him. And then, so that whole next year, I had a crush on him, and it was not reciprocated.
Kinda.
It was not. And then, so finally, our senior year of high school, our high school did 2 Sadie Hawkins dances. And so for our fall Sadies, I decided, I'm going to ask Richard. I wasn't dating anybody, whatever. So I was like, I'm just going to ask Rich. And we weren't even like, I mean, we were friendly because it was such a small school, but we weren't friends. Didn't have the same friend group.
No. I think you're in my class.
I was in a couple of your classes.
Couple
and
classes,
so
yeah.
I asked him to Sadie's, and it was like a sequence of things where like every class he got something until like the last thing. So I think all day you were kind of like, who in the world is asking me to Sadie's? And then it was me.
I know. Yeah, it was crazy.
And thankfully he agreed. And like the week before Sadie's, we decided to go to Not Scary Farm with a group of friends that we could hang out like at least once before we went to Sadie's together. And now like knowing us,
I know it's totally like not us.
The worst possible thing for us to do, but it was what our friends were doing.
It was crazy.
And so we went to that, and he thinks I was faking it just to try to get him to hold my hand, but I was truly, genuinely terrified.
You were terrified.
I don't do that stuff.
You were terrified.
But he was my protector, and we ended up having a great time and went to Sadie's and dated all for senior year. And then our freshman year of college, we broke up for about a year. And the big catalyst for the breakup was, hey, you know, you're going into college and everyone tells you, oh my gosh, you're not going to see your friends anymore. You think you're going to be friends forever and you're not. And I was like, oh my gosh, not true, not us. And I just wanted to be with my girlfriends was a big part of it. And guess what? I don't have a single one of those girlfriends anymore. So they were right.
You broke up with me, by the way.
Yes, I did. But also I was really, really intimidated and concerned about your relationship with your mom and your sisters. Like that's just the truth. Richard is the youngest of 3 and his sisters are 8 and 10 years older than him. And he was very, very, very much babied, very, very much taken care of. And so I was really intimidated by that relationship. And I think you would attest this. I saw somebody who was not super driven, not super passionate, was super talented, but just didn't really want to apply himself to much. And, you know, obviously as a woman, that's like not attractive, right? And so we broke up for about a year. And that whole year, my parents were like, you need to call Richard. My parents loved you.
Got to get the big dog back.
They needed to get Richard back. And so then in like August, your dad used to run a golf league every year. And my dad decided to join the golf league with you guys, even though we weren't dating anymore, hadn't spoken in a year.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And my dad decided, because I think my dad knew, like, Haley needs to be with this guy. Like,
that's right. Like, yeah, that's right.
If I say there's something in my soul, I think my parents knew too.
Yeah.
And so I remember my dad actually took you golfing at his club one day. And
you guys just magically showed up.
My mom and I were like, we're going to go to the club for lunch because we need to go see him. And so I got all dolled up and went up to the club for lunch and didn't even see you, which was really disappointing. And then I finally got the courage to text you and ask like, hey, you want to go grab coffee? And you said yes. And then the day we were supposed to go get coffee, you let me know like, actually, I'm not going to go. I'm seeing this girl and I'm going to see how this goes. And I was heartbroken.
Oh no.
And then,
oh my gosh.
I don't know, maybe a couple weeks later, I decided to try again, which super not like me, but I decided to reach out again. I think because my dad was golfing.
Her, huh?
I know. My dad was golfing with you every week, and I guess maybe knew that things hadn't worked out with her. And so he was like, Haley, you need to call him again. So I did. And sure enough, you agreed and actually stuck to it that time. And we went to Claim Jumper. And
we went to Claim Jumper. That's right. Holy smokes. That's
and
crazy.
Had dinner. And from then on, we've been together ever since. And that was right. I was 18 at the time.
18? Was that 18 years old? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Yeah.
So then we dated for a while. Richard graduated college. He proposed on the day of his college graduation. And we got married 9 months after that. And it was wonderful. But when I say we were broke, I mean, we were broke.
Yeah, for sure.
And when we first got married, I was working as a nanny. And so I brought in an income.
Yeah, you were.
And that helped a lot. But then we got pregnant pretty quickly after getting married. And about 14 weeks into my pregnancy with our oldest, I was laying in bed one night and I stood up and I just felt like a gush and it was blood. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my baby. And so we went to the ER and praise God, everything was fine with the baby. They still don't really know why that was or what happened there. I don't think we've ever even talked about this since, but your parents met us at the hospital because they were concerned. And your mom literally took her debit card out of her wallet and gave it to you and was like, Haley can't go back to work because I was put on like a very strict bed rest. And it was like, you use this for everything. Do you remember that?
Dang.
It was probably like,
No.
it now.
I mean, maybe I do.
It's just something like your family would do. So, whatever. So, that really like was really, really touching to me at the time. So she gave us her debit card and was like, Haley can't work anymore, so use this. And so that really helped us get through. And then after a couple months, I was clear to go back to work. We gave the debit card back. And then our baby was born. And we had always decided that when we had children, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, that was it.
And at the time, Richard was a truck driver for an aerospace company, making $20 an hour.
Yeah.
Bringing home $500 a week.
Yeah. I mean, after taxes, I was like $600 a week or whatever, but after,
And we were tight.
Yeah.
And we were living in an area just outside of LA, which, as you can imagine, is very expensive.
Very expensive.
And I mean, like to the point where like I would go to the grocery store and do all my grocery shopping with the baby strapped to my chest and get up there to pay. And there would just be nothing in the account. I would have to leave the entire cart of groceries at the front. And I'm telling you, this happened multiple times.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh.
It was just, but I will say all that to be said, we were never like, we were not any less happy.
No.
It was just.
Yeah. 100%.
Like money was really tight, but we were still good. Anyways.
Yeah.
And so it went on like that for a while. And then we had our second child and we were still very, very much in that predicament.
Mm-hmm.
And then when our second child was born, I don't know how much of this I should get into.
Oh, what?
I'm going to get into it because it's relevant to the story. But so Richard worked for this aerospace company that his dad happened to own. So he worked for his dad. And it just was not a great situation for us. And I remember telling my husband, like, babe, it's really important to me to maintain a good relationship with your parents. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that much longer if you stay at this job because it just felt very confining.
Yeah.
I guess we'll say.
Yeah, for sure.
And so our second son was born. And I remember he was born on a Tuesday. And that Monday, like we had agreed, okay, you're going to take 2 weeks off work, which seems reasonable to me.
That's right.
But that Monday, your dad showed up at our house and was like, you've got to get back to work. And that, didn't go over super well. And so I think you went back to work. But then that was when I had the conversation with you with, babe, like I want to maintain a good relationship with your parents and this isn't going to work anymore. And so we decided to sell our house in La Puente. We bought a house an hour and a half away in a tiny little town in between Temecula and LA. And decided, okay, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to make it work. And everyone thought we were nuts.
Yeah.
But this was about the time, this was about a year after you had really, really gone on a really intense personal growth journey where so Richard used to be really into video games. And it was actually a really big point of contention in our marriage. And when our oldest was born, I remember telling you, like, babe, you cannot do this anymore. Like, you need to go to bed with me when I go to bed. Like, so you did. You gave up video games, but you replaced that with learning. You replaced that habit with learning. And so you just, I remember it being the Hodge twins and Elliot Hulse and, oh gosh, what's that guy? The guy that introduced us to evolution or elevation.
Oh, Stephen Furt. Vince Delmonte.
Vince Delmonte. He was a big one. Ty Lopez.
Yeah.
And so you just got really, really into this. And I remember it being really exciting. And so we were looking for this house. Like I said, it was about an hour and a half away because it was what we could afford. And in these drives back and forth to go look at houses and whatever, we would just like talk. And you would tell me about these books that you were reading and these new ideas that you had. And we had some pretty significant like money things that we had to dismantle. And just like the way we viewed life in general really had to kind of be rebuilt. And so we would just talk. And it was like, I remember saying like, that's some of my favorite times is when we could strap the babies into their car seats. They would fall asleep on the drive and we could just talk and spend time together. And it was super exciting. And so in that journey, so you ended up quitting your dad's work. Yep. We were moving about an hour and a half away and you didn't have a job. We didn't know what we were going to do. And we were running the gym full time. And it was actually really fun. You were a great gym owner. We loved the gym. And we had a third baby by this time and kind of realized like saved a ton of money. A lot of that savings had gone into the build out of the gym.
Yeah. Well, we went to debt for it.
We took out a HELOC on our house. And I remember you looking at me and just being like, babe, how much do we have left in our account when we had this conversation?
$1,500.
You're like, babe, we've got $1,500 left. And then we're maxed out. Like, I've got to do something. And I remember sitting on the kitchen counter and I started crying because at this time you were so it was a gym, right? So you had to leave at 4:30 in the morning because first class is at 5. You weren't getting home at 9 o'clock at night because the last class ended at 8:45 or whatever it was. And so I just felt like we don't see you. And so you came and you were like, babe, I need to do something. I have this contact. I could call him and see if he needs some sales and I can make something go with him, or I can just go all in at the gym. Like, what should I do? And I said, babe, just go all in with the gym because I don't want to lose any more time with you, you know?
Yeah.
And thankfully you had more wisdom than I did and said, you know what? No, I think I'm going to call this guy. I think I have to do this.
Robbie Blanchard.
I don't know if I could say the name. Okay. So you called Robbie and this was a Thursday. You called Robbie and you were like, Robbie, you got a list, send it to me. I'll do some sales for you. And literally, so that was a Thursday. By Monday, you were taking sales calls for Robbie. And you were so good at it. Right. So like after the first 2 weeks, Robbie called you and was like, dude, you've made more sales in the last 2 weeks than the last 3 agencies I've hired combined.
Yeah. It was actually the first week. After the first week.
So he was like, what are you doing? You know? And so then I think you really realized, okay, I think I got something here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then it just grew. So then you made your first hire and then another and another and another. And it just kept going from there. And I mean, now you're, I don't know, do you have over 500 closers now?
Give or take.
Close to 500 closers, a whole C-suite team and leadership. And it's like, it's a company now, which was not our intention. Wild. And it's just so crazy.
It was wild. Yeah.
But through all of that, we've talked about this a lot. We were very, very intentional about growing together. And I've had other conversations with other people that I thought, okay, maybe they're starting this trajectory where I've told the wife like, hey, get ready, buckle up, get ready to chew on some big ideas with him because he's going to grow and you got to keep up. But it was one of the most fun things we've done together as a couple. And we look back and people thought we were so crazy.
Yep.
And that's kind of what made it really fun. It's like it was you and I against the world at that point.
Yeah.
And
it was. Yeah.
It was just so fun. And so
chills.
I know, but we would dream together. You knew like your leadership was so good that you knew exactly where you wanted to go, where we were going. You kept painting the vision for me. And as the vision got bigger, you would communicate it. And it was a really, really fun time in our life. So what details did I leave out? Because I know from your perspective, there's a lot more, but what else is relevant?
Well, I mean, I think you said it really good, but I think one of the most important parts of that journey, kind of going back to the core of this podcast, was the dreaming part, right? Because we started to dream, as I started growing and I started learning and I started reading personal development and I started listening to Tony Robbins and all these things, I would come home, remember, and we'd share it. I'd share it. I'd be like, babes, like, did you know X? And I'm learning about this and learning about that. We would talk about it. And then I don't know, somewhere along that journey, maybe a year into that journey, we started to just like dream up another life, right? And it was just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool, like if I could work from home? And wouldn't it be cool?
And the 5 mile radius.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if like we had everything within 5 miles, like 5 mile radius, like the gym, where we lived, my office, what we did in a given day was all within 5 miles, right? And I said, wouldn't it be cool if like we weren't tied down to a location and all these things? And at that time, it was kind of like a pipe dream, right? I was like, well, yeah, this is cool, but like, how are we going to make it happen, right? How's it all going to come together?
And we had people telling us it was a pipe dream, that life doesn't exist, that's not reality.
Yeah, it's not reality. It's not this, it's not that. But I knew different. I knew we could do it. Like, because I mean, that whole story is like, and the reason why I knew we could do it is because I followed this podcast. Remember the passive income? Smart Passive Income podcast. And literally all it would do on this podcast is talk about 9 to 5 people that had a 9 to 5 job that started an online business, right? And they would give their stories of how after X amount of time, they were able to quit their 9-to-5, start a business, and they were working from home, and they were teaching people how to make money online and doing what. And so after so many of these interviews, I did it for like a year straight. All I would listen to is this podcast. And I was able to brainwash myself into believing that we could do something like this, right? I was like, well, if they can do it, why can't we do it? And then along the journey, I think the big part you left out was that you were really the inspiration that kept the journey alive, right? Because, and the way I look at it is, you know, not when the world's against you, but when you do something that is so unconventional, and everybody's saying you're crazy. Everybody's like, dude, why would you do this? Like, it doesn't make sense. How could you
go work at UPS? Go work at Costco.
Go work
they
at Costco, UPS, Costco, you know, get the pension, get the stability, get the great, and we're doing the opposite. And so the only fuel I had was you, right? It wasn't like I was going to get fuel from anywhere else. Where else was I going to get it?
Right.
And so you gave me the confidence to just keep doing it. And even though you didn't really know like where it was going to lead and what we were going to do, you said, just keep doing what you're doing. Right.
Yeah. And well, I think that's important is because as a wife, I think that, and I believe this with children too, people very often live up to what you expect of them.
Yeah.
And I think if you can communicate to your husband that like you believe in him, that you think he is brilliant, that you think he can do anything, and like he probably will. But you can also communicate to him that you think he's a loser, that you don't think he follows through on anything, that you don't think he's going to do it. That, you know, you can communicate the same message the other way, and you're probably going to get that too.
Yeah, I think so.
And then for you as a man, like your leadership through that season was so good that I never felt unsafe. I never felt abandoned. Like I very much felt a part of the growth with you.
And I think that is one of the most important parts of dreaming together as a couple, is because when you dream, like in order to go to have that dream become a reality, you have to do what people are unwilling to do. And in that season, if you remember, I was working my 9-to-5, but then I would come home and then I would work my 8 to midnight thing, right? And I remember telling you, I said, babes, like every night from 8 or like when we put the kids down, we would have dinner, and then I would work and I would do that side hustle thing from like 8 to midnight. And then I would go to bed at midnight. I would try to get up early but because we dreamed it together and you felt like you were a part of it, you knew what, because like if it was games, you wouldn't have done it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Games would have been like, absolutely no. But because it was a dream that we had together, it was like, okay, he's got to do this because we're going here. You know what I mean? And so the sacrifices become a lot easier to handle because now you have a dream that you're pursuing.
And I think a lot of that is God's grace too, because like you said, that's not super like me. I'm a very like quality time person. I like to have time with you. And when you're on that end of the dream, you don't know that the dream's going to be achieved, you know, but there was just...
Yeah, there's no guarantees.
There's no guarantee.
It's going to work, yeah.
Or where it's going to go or where it's going to end up. Like,
yeah,
you don't know.
Yeah.
But we just knew we had to do something different. And so it was like...
Yeah, we knew we had to do something different.
Something's got to give. Something's got to change here.
Something's got to change. And I just remember feeling so inspired. And I think maybe you fed off the inspiration too. You know, you could just sense like there's something here.
Oh, there was like a stirring in your soul that was just like undeniable.
Yeah.
And like, you're still like the most laid back, easygoing, fun, funny, kind, like all those wonderful things that you were when I said you were kind of that unmotivated, unpassionate person. All those good qualities that you had, you still have those.
Yeah, that's right.
But now you're the most driven, passionate go-getter I know. And it's like, it's really been amazing to watch this like transformation happen in your life.
When I was the exact opposite before.
In a lot of ways you were.
Yeah, I was the exact opposite.
And it's like, just goes to show if you find your thing and your calling and your passion, like maybe.
Well, and also just goes to show you that you know, really, I mean, it was an unrelenting personal journey of personal development. I mean, where it was just like one book after another book after another book and then, you know, smashing limiting beliefs, smashing paradigm shifts, identity shifts, believing, you know, that you could become something different, you know, and that is like really the game that we found ourselves in. I would come home, we would share it, we would talk about it. And then, you know, and then we would just like, I remember, I don't know if you ever felt this, but we grew so much that when I looked around me, I felt like everybody had changed. I'm like, why do people just seem different? Like, but nobody changed, but the people that changed were us. And you get to this point where you grow so much that everything around you seems to be unfamiliar. Like, why are these people doing X? Why are they doing Y? And you think like people are changing, but they're not. It's you. And so with that being said, yeah, I think that one of the most powerful things a couple can do is have a dream that you pursue. And if I were to bet right now, most couples do not have that. There's no clear dream. And I made a post this today on Instagram, but once you know what you want, that almost becomes the magic sauce. Because if you can dream something that you want together, you can start taking action to get it, you know? And that dream will dictate so many things in your life as a married couple. It'll dictate where you spend your time, how you spend your money, the opportunities that you pursue, and the things that you do. Like it dictates every part of your life now because it's a dream that you're going after as a couple. And one thing, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but one thing that allowed us to expand on this dream is the Navigators Council.
It's not called that anymore, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called now.
Jeremy and Audrey Roloff, they have a ministry called Beating 50%.
Yeah.
And it's a marriage ministry. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But probably about 8 years ago, they used to have a marriage journal called the Navigators Council. That's now, I think it's just called the Marriage Journal, but they still have it, and it's still an excellent resource. I think every married couple needs to do it. But it was a book, and it was like every week, we used to do it on Thursdays, so we would sit down, and there was like a little devotion or a little thing like that you guys would read together, and then every week was the same 7 questions. And I don't remember all 7 of them, but it was like, what is one thing I can do for you this week that'll help you? What is one thing that you're dreaming about this week?
How's our sex life?
Was that one of them?
Yeah, one of them was about sex. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the same 7 questions every week. And it was just such a wonderful touch point for us when like now we're so fortunate. We do date night once a week.
Yeah.
At that time in our life, we couldn't do that. We
100%.
had really little kids and we had no money.
Yeah.
So, but we had this reliable Thursday night. We put the kids down and we sit on the couch with a cup of tea and we do this. And it was so good. I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't going to, but.
Yeah. And it was a reminder of what are the dreams? What are the things that we're both
working towards?
Yeah, what are we working towards? And so...
but I wanted to go back to one other thing that you said, because you said that, you know, as you were growing, you looked around you and you thought everyone was different, but really you were different. But in a couple, I think that you have to be really intentional about growing together, or you're going to look at your spouse and be like, why are you different when really they're not, you are. Yeah. So the growth has to happen together.
It has to. It has to.
And so there's a lot of ways that we did that. I think one of those ways was just those conversations that we would have in the car. And so like, you know, turn off the music, turn off the podcast and actually talk to each other. Yeah. Like I think not enough people do that. Yeah. But also, and this was a huge sacrifice for me because I had really little kids, and looking back, I don't even know how I had the time to do this now that I think about it, but I know I did it. Is that the books that you were reading, I tried to read them too. So, you know, on Audible while I was folding the laundry, and it was actually really good for our kids because I made our kids listen to all these things too because they were always with me.
That's right.
But I would listen to Outwitting the Devil and How to Win Friends and Influence People and Secrets of the Millionaire Mind and all these books that had these huge ideas that were brand new to us that you were learning that I was able to like keep up in a conversation with you because I wasn't being left behind. I was
100%.
growing with you.
100%.
And I think that if you as a wife just see it as your husband's job, because he's the breadwinner, he's going to go figure that out and you're just going to take care of the kids. Like No, you've got to be an intellectual
Yeah.
partner for your spouse. And you have to be someone that they can talk to.
Well, and I believe you have to be the number one cheerleader.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you have to be the cheerleader, because if you weren't the cheerleader, I wouldn't have kept going. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the thing. It's like, it worked because we both worked. You know what I mean? Like, if it was just me, I would have never done it. You know, I would have, like, if you would have been like, babes, like, stop, like, look, we need to make,
This is
like,
stupid. Just
this is
go
stupid.
get a
Like,
job.
yeah, like, hey, like, what do you mean? Like, how are you going to do that? Like, that don't make no sense. Like, if you would have went that direction, we would have never arrived to this point.
And then there's,
And
there's another side to that coin, where as a wife, this is a really, really hard balance as a wife, where I was really encouraging you to do this thing, right? But on the other side, it was like, hey, we've got a really young family and our kids need you at home and I need you at home. And so I think some wives can do what you're saying and say, oh, just give up and go get a job and stop.
Yeah.
And then some other wives are like, look, I need the income. And so go do whatever you need to do. And
Yeah.
I'll be home with the kids. And like, I think your husband also needs to know that they have a valuable place at home too, and that you want them home, and that you desire them to be home with you. And so it's a really tricky balance, but I think both are really important.
it's a tricky balance. But dude, remember, the reason why we were doing it is because we wanted that life. We wanted the life where I woke up and I didn't have to go to work. I could just be with the kids. We could go and take a day and do whatever, you know, like, that was the life we were going for. And that's the life that we envisioned, you know? And because now, yeah, you might have to sacrifice time now, but for the greater goal tomorrow, you know? And I think that's the hard part. But I
think that has to be I think that can get out of hand really quick if you're not careful.
It can, but the only reason it will get out of hand is if you forget why you're doing it.
Or if you don't have a spouse that can kind of call you back a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Call you back a little bit. But again, I think there's a lot of facets to it.
It's very
but
nuanced.
I read a book by a gentleman. You know the book. It's called. It's the opposite author of the favorite woman book that you read.
Oh, Wild at Heart.
Yeah, Wild at Heart.
John Eldridge.
Yeah. So if you're a guy, you know, women, if you want to pass it over to your man.
I mean,
but
if you've got a man in your life, you should.
I know.
Too.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's called Wild at Heart. It says every man needs three things: a battle to fight, a beauty to rescue, and a journey to go on, I believe.
Or an adventure to go
on. Or an
on.
adventure to go on, right? And so when I read that, I realized that what I was missing in my life was a battle to fight. And I think that every man in his core has a battle that they want to fight, but they just don't take the time to think about it, you know? And until you take the time to step back and just, it's so hard when you're in the thick of it, because really what you're thinking about is just paying bills, right? Like, how do you have the time to think about what you want when you're just trying to survive?
Or even worse, you're just thinking about, oh my gosh, I get to retire 15 years. Like, I'm done.
Yeah,
like
15 years.
Sad life.
Yeah, I'm done and I'm this. But what I can tell you from just being a man is that having a battle worth fighting for is something very, very powerful. And even more powerful than that is having the wife or the woman by your side that is supporting that battle. Right? And I think if you have those two things in your life, and again, we have very traditional roles, right? I do believe at the core of it, a man has these battles that they want to fight. And I do believe at the core of it, a woman has this drive to want to support that battle, to be the anchor and to be the support and to be the nurturer in that whole, fight. And so, but I think a lot of men just start trying to fight these battles on their own. Like, meaning they have maybe a battle that they're fighting, but they're not communicating it. They're not articulating it. They're not sharing it. They're not sitting down and talking about it. So the woman's left out of the fight and she's like, well, he's just working. Why? What are you doing? Like,
but that
why are you doing
also could be because when he brought up his battle before, his wife said,
yeah,
oh, that's stupid. You can't do that.
Yeah, 100%. It could be.
So then why is she going to bring it up again?
Yeah.
Then you've got to like force yourself into that.
But if I had to guess, I would say it's more common that the guy's not articulating it. You know, and he's scared to articulate it.
But why?
Well, because what if it doesn't work? What if I look like a dummy? What if I'm a fool? Like you put yourself out there. You know, when I said we can do, like, we're going to have this dream, what if it doesn't work?
Right.
And now guess what? You got to actually do it.
Now you got to do it. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the doing is scary because you don't know if it's going to work and you're just trying to figure it out.
Well, like I said, I mean, we had for sure one business, maybe two, you could say, that failed.
Yeah.
Before we found, like, before a third one.
Oh,
worked.
yeah. I mean, multiple. I tried the Amazon store. Remember, I did the Amazon. I bought all these supplements. And that was a whole nother thing. Then Redemptive Fitness. And then I started doing, remember, I doing social media for my sister. And I tried to start like social media and helping her run her e-com business. And then I tried to like kind of get into that. And then I tried to, you know,
so there
we
were
did
a lot
the
of
Fit Body, a lot of
failed.
ventures that just were part of the journey that just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, but that's part of the learning process, you know? And so, but I think from experience, I think part of the fun of being married is that you can have that dream and you can pursue a dream. And I think the fun part, look, I think the cool part is maybe not even reaching the dream. It's just doing it. It's just having the story, you know, like now we have the story and the story worked out good, right? But even if the story didn't work out good, it's still an adventure. It's still something you guys are doing, actively pursuing, or it didn't work out, but you get to tell the story.
Yeah, there's something you learned.
You know, there's something you learned. And so, yeah, I think dreaming is just so important. And I think to your point too, like a wife will be able to tell if you're serious or not too. You know, like if the wife's not supporting you, they might just have this notion that you're on fire for 30 days. And then they're like, no longer, you're changing. You're like, oh, well, what if we do this? And he's working out and then he stops. And then like those things are indications that, hey, I can't trust this. Like
Behavior's a language.
Behavior's a language, right? And as a man, and we'll have another episode on this, you lead almost everything in that front. Like that's just by design. And so
I completely appreciate and agree with that perspective.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I think women can really underestimate the power of their support and their words, you know? And so
yeah, 100%.
Say your husband's let you down before, but then he goes and he tries again. And you're just like, oh yeah, we'll see how long this one lasts.
Yeah.
Like you're not inspiring him to, like you said, you need to be his biggest cheerleader. Like you need to believe in him. And like I said, I very, very, very much believe that people live up to what you expect of them.
Yeah.
And so if you're expecting him to be a loser, he probably will be. But if you're really expecting, like, yeah, he's gonna do it and he's gonna get it and he's gonna make something happen. It might not be this thing, but he's gonna make something happen because you believed in him.
Because you believe in him. I don't know if you remember this, but we were sitting on the couch, and this was like after one of our Navigator's journals or whatever the company's called now. But you said, you know, I have this feeling you're going to build an empire one day.
I do.
And I said, really? You think so? And this is before anything, you know, this is before like just sitting on the couch. And I was like, really? Huh? She's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, okay. And I remember that. I remember that day so vividly because I was like, an empire one day. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean? You know? And even I think about Patrick, you know, Patrick was in our, like, he was kind of he was out there at the start. So for those of you that don't know Patrick.
Are you talking about our handyman?
Yeah, handyman Patrick.
Love
Patrick. And, you know, we were in this house, Big Range, and this is where we met Patrick. And this is, you know, before we had money, we were just kind of.
Teeny little house. We
were just kind of coming up in and I remember, I'm in my garage and I just bought my first microphone because I wanted to start a podcast. Oh, Onward Men is another thing.
Onward Men. That was a good one too.
Onward Men is another thing we try to start. But I remember I bought this podcast and he's like, hey, what are you doing with that equipment? And I was like, oh, I'm starting a podcast. He's like, you're starting a podcast? He's like, cool. He's like, what are your goals? I was like, dude, I said, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just trying to figure out this online thing. You know, I would love to build this like an online business and I'm really just trying to figure it out. And this was before, and Patrick now still works with us to this day. Yeah. And he's one of the, but I just think about that because, I mean, just how like, you know, just the where we were, yeah, the path, you know, And it was on that house couch where you said, hey, someday you're going to build an empire. And I think it's so true. I mean, somebody's got to believe in you. You got to get belief from somewhere. And usually it's not going to come from your parents because if you're if you're trying to live a life that everyone around you has not lived, they will not understand it.
Well, you tell the story about the crabs, right? And you have a bucket of crabs. And if one crab starts to try to climb out of the bucket, the other crabs will grab the crab and pull him back down with them because they don't want him to leave the bucket.
Yes.
Yes. And you kind of get that in your own life, even with people who really love you and really have good intention. They kind of get this like freak out, like, no, that's not the way we do things. That's not the way we think. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
And you got to kind of kick the crabs off. And then before you know it, the other crabs start to crawl out because they realize it's possible.
100%. And you also have to realize that, look, it's not ill intention either.
No.
Like my parents didn't have ill intent. They wanted me to win, but their way of winning was just a different method.
Yeah, your mom will still look at us sometimes and be like, this is not real. Like,
yeah,
she'll look at our life and be like, people don't get to do this. Like, we have so much time together. You're very involved in the kids' lives.
Yeah.
Our marriage is really good.
Yes.
Our income is good. And so she looks at us and she's just like,
yeah,
people don't do this. Like what, she still feels that way.
But by design. And I think that's what I really want to get through in this podcast is that it's by design.
Yeah. You got to know what you want.
You have to know what you want because you can't design something that you don't see, like, and so I just hope after this podcast that if you're a married couple and you don't have a dream and you don't have a life that you're looking to pursue and go after, that maybe you can start today doing that. And then start getting that energy, feeling that like, wow, like there's something that we're going after.
Yeah.
So
if I had to summarize it, if you're like in that, and I think we're all like, should always be growing. I think we all have a personal responsibility to the world to be growing.
Yeah.
But if you're in that like real steep upward trajectory, I think as a husband, your main pursuit aside from the growth needs to be leadership and communicating to your wife what's happening. As a wife, your main goal needs to be A, growing with him, and B, just believing in him like no one ever has believed in anything, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you have those two things and you're focused on growing together, at some point something will happen, whether or not it's this thing or this thing or this thing or how far down the line the thing is.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah. And again, I'll say this. I don't think the point is even accomplishing the dream. I think the point is pursuing the dream.
Right.
Right.
Okay. I have one other question for you. Do you think, so obviously for us, the dream, it had financial aspects and it was a business essentially. Yeah. Can you dream in other ways? Like,
what do you mean?
Like, can the point of the dream be, I think you can dream to have a family and to have children and what kind of parents you're going to be. And like that can be the dream. Or the dream can be where you're going to live. It doesn't have to necessarily have a financial tie.
Yeah.
Although our world just does work in such a way that
I feel like
you are financially rewarded for offering value.
I think about this, right? And I'm like, dude, look, if you look back at ancestry, right? You didn't need money. Like you would freaking just go kill stuff and cook stuff up and live in a hut. And we don't live in that world. Everything today costs what? Money, schooling, housing, where you live. Anything you do, you need money. So I feel like it's a work. I feel like nowadays, all dreams in some capacity have to involve money because that's just the reality of how we live now.
Right. And it should be your goal as a human to offer value to the world. And we live in a world that repays value monetarily.
And it just repays value monetarily, And I'll also say this: you don't get to accomplish the dream without the story. And so, and what I mean by that is, on your way to trying to do something that maybe nobody in your family has done, that nobody understands, like the story you can't get away from. Like I remember a gentleman said, there's always the Rocky cutscene where Rocky's beaten up, he's bruised, he's like on the floor, he's about to give up, and there's just no hope, right? There's no hope. Like usually on that story, you're going to hit the Rocky cutscene.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that Rocky cutscene is real. It's scary. It's painful. It sucks. It's not fun. But you're probably going to have to go through that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the real.
And anyone that you look at that you're thinking like, oh, they had it so easy. I guarantee you they didn't. They had a Rocky cutscene.
Everybody has the Rocky cutscene. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. In some shape, way, or form, your brother. I mean, he just did his, it's like everybody has the Rocky cutscene.
Yeah. My brother might be on his way out of his Rocky cutscene. I think they've lived it.
Yeah.
They've lived super,
it.
I just think it's the best thing for a couple. I really do. I think it's a great thing. And this is going to be a whole other podcast that we don't even need to get into right now, but we've done a lot of work mentally with overcoming some bad money beliefs.
Yes.
But I just think it's worth saying.
Well, maybe more than you. I feel like you had pretty good money beliefs.
I think you grew up with bad money beliefs.
I agree, yeah.
I think it's really popular or really common, especially in the church, to think that having money is bad, having money is evil. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than the rich man to get into heaven, right? And so we all hear those things growing up and think like, oh my gosh, I can't be rich. Or we hear, oh, money is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. But then if you go back to that passage, what does the passage actually say?
Money is it says money is, no, it says the root of all kinds of evil is money.
The love of money.
The love of money
is the root of all kinds of evil.
Yeah, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil.
The love of money. So it's not money. Money in and of itself is neutral. It is
100%.
neither good nor bad.
Yep.
But it is an amplifier.
It does amplify.
Money is an amplifier. What do I mean?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
I mean that if you are a bad person who gets access to a surplus of money, you're probably going to do some bad things.
That's right.
You're going to go buy some hookers, and you're going to go buy some coke, and you're going to get into some trouble.
Oh, you're getting down
right?
dirty. Yeah,
I mean, it's true.
Sure. Yeah.
If you're a good person, it's going to amplify that too. Because guess what?
It will.
If all you're concerned about is covering your bases, you don't have any room for generosity. How do you help anybody else?
Yeah.
You need to think bigger than that, right?
That's right.
Because now if we have a surplus, I mean, I don't want to get into the details of our generosity, but generosity is a really big cornerstone of our life and something we take really, really seriously.
That's right.
But you can't do that without a surplus because you got to take care of your house before it falls down, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so you have a duty and a responsibility to make as much as you can and offer as much value to the world as you can.
Yep.
Because you don't know if your kid's going to get sick and need this surplus. They might, or you might, or
your buddy might,
or your buddy
family might,
or you might just have a friend who you happen to go over to their house and you notice that they've got a box of cereal and a bag of frozen broccoli, and that's all they've got.
Yep.
Well, guess what? They're getting delivered to their door the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
But you can't do that if you don't have the surplus. So you have a duty to have a surplus so that you can recognize need for other people.
Yep.
So I think that's really important to remember is that money is neither bad nor good. It is a neutral thing, but it amplifies character.
It amplifies character.
And you have a duty to make as much of it as you can if you're a good person, because whether you make it or somebody else makes it, if you're a good person, you want to know that the good people have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, spot on. And that was a journey. That was a journey for me, especially. Yeah. Because I did believe that money was evil. Money was bad. Money was not good. Mm-hmm. And not to get into it, but in the Christian faith, that is a common thing, a common belief that a lot of people hold.
Mm-hmm. But it's wrong.
It's wrong.
And I think it's a way the devil really got his foot, like he got a foothold in the church with that.
I think so.
And I think it's wrong.
I think so. 100%. I would agree with that.
So if you've got some money issues, I think you need to go really.
Yeah. Well, maybe do an episode on that.
Oh, we need to.
Yeah, we'll do an episode on. We'll do an episode on money, maybe in general, in
sure.
In marriage.
Yeah. But that was super fun.
That was fun, man.
I think that was a great one.
Yeah, that was a good story.
I mean, we didn't even get to the half of it, but it was a fun one. So thank you. I'm super proud of you.
Proud of you.
You built a life I never could have imagined.
We built a life.
did.
It was a team effort.
Absolutely was.
Yeah. And then last thing, we should actually do this in the beginning because people probably cut out before this. But if you listen all the way to the end, then maybe something you enjoyed about the podcast. Mm-hmm. So what would be cool is getting a review, huh?
Yes.
Like Spotify, sure. Apple. If you enjoy it, I'm sure maybe somebody else that you know would enjoy it too. Sharing it would be cool.
Yeah. That's the easiest way for us to get the word out about the podcast.
Yeah, grow and get other people into it. Yeah. So
share it with your friends.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Thanks, babe.
All right. Love you.
Love you.